Well, we come to the final question this evening, which is about the environment and especially water quality. And Max Thompson is asking, should water quality, that is the rivers, etc., should that be governed as it currently is by a kind of a national standard, or should this be in the hands of local bodies, regional councils and the like?
I think the dilemma for local government is always it's terribly under-resourced and struggles to actually implement and carry out a lot of policies. So the example would be the Resource Management Act. The struggles that you have on regional differences in what was intended to be more of a national idea. And as I look at the Waikato River, for example, the regional authority has struggled there to deal with local community interests and local councils the river flows through. And it's also been drawn into convoluted and very emotive debates around pollutants from farms, pollutants from industry, pollutants from towns. If central government says this is the standard we're going to meet, then that's it. And in some ways, I suggest that the whole of the environmental global issue is such and of such urgency, we don't have the luxury and the time to muck around with local niceties or local arguments that are not necessarily based on good scientific evidence that says our waterways are in trouble.
Could I add to that, John? Was it the Ruataniwha dam in the Hawke's Bay?
Yeah.
And for a number of years, farming community and I think local government wanted to build this dam, and quite clearly National Party policy was that this would be a very good thing in terms of the economic benefits. But at every step of the way, they were declined, and it went through a couple of court appeals, and finally, they've said, no, this is not the right thing to do by the environment. And unfortunately, Bill English said, oh, well, we'll change the Resource Management Act. And I thought that was an act of political suicide amongst the blue-greens. There's quite a few people within the national scene who are blue in terms of their politics, but have a definite green tinge about it. And I think that cavalier attitude to dismissing and I've heard it said by a number of national aspirants, that the Resource Management Act has to be changed because it's stacked against development. Actually, it's stacked for the environment, and that's what it was set up to do. And Winston Peters made the very telling point on the minor parties debate that the vast majority of New Zealanders simply know that the state of the rivers is not right, and there's no point, as you said, in dividing town and country and rural communities against city developments. We're all drinking the same water. We're all swimming in the same rivers. We're all trying to make our livings off the same land that's where the water is going into those rivers, the runoff into them. So we've got to address this as a matter of urgency. And for me, it's the prime issue of the debate, the environmental issues. Westphilly and Ian, how do you feel about it?
I'm interested in the conversation that was on TV this morning, and the perspective by the Māori Party about the involvement of iwi, which I suspect is partly local and partly central in terms of waterways and the environment and so forth. I think it does come down, as John had alluded to the fact that local governments are under-resourced, but are also, I suspect, not really wanting to get into the kind of arguments that all the other things get into, like transport and so forth. So I think, I mean, I don't know what the answer is, but I suspect that depending on which perspective you're coming from, whether it's local or central government or iwi, there's vested interest in all of this, and I'm not sure who's the benefit. I think it should be looked at from how the community can benefit from the environment, and I'm not sure whether that's part of the argument at the moment, or whether it's throwing around the idea of who's going to benefit politically, and whether it's business or the farmers who are going to benefit in terms of the economic returns. I'm not quite sure where the conversation is at in terms of that or in the future, but I suspect iwi and Māoridom might have the stronger arguments in terms of some local responsibility.
I would only comment, just follow up on David's point, that water is something that is essential for all of us. And from my view, we shouldn't lose sight of the fact that in some way we are all responsible for what happens to this vital resource, because without it, there is no human race to follow.
Could I just make a comment there, David?
Exactly. Very well put.
Situation up north where the Russian billionaire has asked the local council to give consent to him draining the local river to water his garden, and the Māori iwi has objected. And it's the only time the regional council or the local council listens to the local community. And I'm not sure whether central government could help here, because I think they were very encouraged when the Russian billionaire came up north. So I'm not sure. I'm pretty cynical, but I suspect that there is some real input that the local community might have in this, because it affects them at that grassroots level. So, I don't know.
I wonder whether the dilemma always for politics and argument about the environment is that politics are about promising something now. To talk about the environment is to talk about the future. And in some ways, the immediate gain might not be that much in comparison to the long-term cost. I mean, I think the classic example was, again, in the Waikato region, with the nitrates. It's not what you do now as an impact on the river now, it's what you do now and the impact of the river in 50 years' time when those nitrates actually enter the river. Now, there's no political mileage to be made out of thinking that far ahead. That's the tragedy of it all. And unless we can actually say, we'll put aside our personal needs for now and take into account those really long-term needs, then the debate is always going to be on the, it's always pushing water uphill with a rake, if you like.
Well, I think, John, you're highlighting the last topic that we want to look at tonight, because you're talking about the future. And the topic that I thought would be really great to end with is that some of you have stood as for political office or been approached to. And I wondered what your perspective was about. Do you actually think the way candidates present themselves, because you've been in that process, do you think that they are really thinking about the good of the country first, or are they thinking about getting elected first? Now, Wesleyan, I think you've been approached by just about every political party under the sun in New Zealand. What do you think? Do you think that if you look at these candidates that are standing now asking for your vote and your electorate, are they there for the good of the country, or are they there for because they want to be in office?
I have the sense to turn them all down. I think political parties is a team game. And I think that it doesn't matter what your intentions are or your aspirations are for your political career, you've got to play the team game. And I think most of them are pretty much team players, whether we like their policies or not, or whether we like their partisanship or not. It's a team game, and it's difficult, I think, for some of them to actually, present themselves in light of the party. But I think that's the nature of the beast, and I think it's a very difficult career and life choice to be part of a very big organisation like a political party. But I think from what I've seen, they've done very well. They line up behind the leader, they nod their head when they're behind the leader on camera, and they seem to be saying the things that the leader wants them to say. So, you can't fault them. It's the old saying is you've got to swallow some dead rats, and I think they do that pretty well, but that's the nature of the game, I think.
Ian Faulkner, what's your observation?
Well, never having been in the position of anybody wanting me to stand for a national political scene, I think there's truth in what Wesley is saying there, because I just watch the various candidates lining themselves up in order of seniority behind the leader and following what they have agreed to do.
That's a fair answer, Ian. John, yourself, you stood for the far left, didn't you?
Well, I was chairperson of the East Cape Electoral Committee. In fact, ran one of their campaigns, and prior to that had actually been nominated as a possible candidate. But like Wesley, I would have to say that even those people I find despicable, in actual fact, stood with good intention. I didn't like those intentions, but actually they believed in what they believed in, and they were committed to, in their view, bettering society and the world. The other part is, I think, in order to be a candidate, you have to have an ego. I mean, let's not beat around the bush. You've actually got to believe you're God's gift to this local community, and they need to get out and vote for you. If you can't believe that, you're not going to make it. The other part is then, I think, whether you like it or not, as Wesley said, you not only have to swallow dead rats, I think sometimes you have to live inside the carcass of an elephant. The simple reason is that your ideas are just one of a whole cluster of ideas of a group of parliamentarians, all of whom believe their ideas are better than anybody else's. And at some point, you're going to have a good idea. Most of your ideas are never going to see the daylight. The other part is that even in the last year since I was involved, the shift has really been away from the personality of the local candidate to the charisma of the leader. That's it. It's the only thing that people vote upon, and I think watching the polling today, one sees that Labour didn't have to change any policies. They simply changed the leader. Jacinda is a charismatic young person, and their polling went up through the roof.
Yeah, and in fact, some of her announcements are sort of the policies of yesteryear. They're no longer relevant for today. But it's the wow factor, it's the X factor. And I think New Zealand politics has become far more USA presidential in how it governs, how it runs itself for office these days. So I'd like to say thank you very much for all of you coming along tonight, and also to our studio audience.
Good night,
Thanks
gentlemen.
indeed for coming in.